Hello stars, this is part 2 of the stained glass tutorial. This is where the magic happens, baby. So this is the art that I printed out of the Black Girl Bloom coloring book that I drew. And one of the things I thought was, okay, if I'm going to do this, I really need to figure out the colors where everything is going to be placed. So that means good old-fashioned coloring. I started coloring this piece to make sure I can get the colors in that I wanted, and in order to go ahead and lay everything out kind of like a diagram. So I started that. I colored the whole thing. It was very quick, very simple, way quicker and way simpler than actually doing the stained glass. And I wanted to make sure I knew where all the colors would be so that it was just an easier process. So I pulled out all my stained glass colors, the ones that I wanted to use, and then I pretty much matched it to the markers and said, okay, these are the colors. This is where they're going to be placed, and this is how it's going to look. That was fun. It was a lot of fun. I was able to do this on the private live with my Starlights. And then we were able to make sure as we were talking that all the colors lay where I wanted them to lay. They helped me out a bit by telling me the colors that they would like to see in the piece, and I was able to accommodate, so it was good. Now, coloring in all of these colors really quickly, this actually didn't take a long time just because I knew, what colors we had to work with. It wasn't a whole lot, so that was pretty simple. And then once we got through that, I was able to kind of figure out how I wanted the glass to be, because when you are doing stained glass, there is a part that could be frosted, and then there is a part that can be like opaque. So you do have to also think about that while you are putting your colors down and making a plan in your mind about how this is going to go. So that was a big part of what I was working on when I started doing this piece, was how do I want this to go and which part of it was going to make sense. So those are some of the considerations I was making, mainly in the bottom part of this piece, because the bottom part, she is in a vase. And so that part I want to be clear that she's in a vase. So I had to kind of think through that process and what I wanted that to look like as I did it. And then also making sure that the colors don't blend together in a way that doesn't allow you to distinguish the flowers from each other. That was also a challenge. So all those challenges were what I had in mind while planning out the colors of the art and where things were going to fall in the art. So this was a really dope opportunity to think that through before I got to the permanency of putting the stained glass colors together on the glass. That was the challenge. And when I do this again, and I will be doing this a lot more, I definitely will be mixing colors. I've already started sourcing out additional brands so that I'm not just using one brand, and I can kind of see which brand I like the best out of the stained glass stuff. So there we go. We are not going to take a whole long time to do this. Once we're done with this, we are going to put the glass back on top, line it back up to the art so that we make sure that the colors of the art is peeking through. And again, when I was telling you all in part 1 how you can make the removable clings, this is the same thing you can do with that part, is to make sure that with the removable clings, you are able to have the colors in that you want so that you're able to use it on that substrate the way that I'm using this on this substrate. So you'd be doing the same exact thing to lay out your colors so that you're able to see what the colors look like. You'll be doing the same exact thing. It's not different. So just to give you all that idea. This part I was a little confused about because I'm like, her shirt is still in water, even though she's in water, she still has skin. Her skin's not going to change colors because she's in water. So all of these things were considerations. It's like that when I do my Black Girl Mermaid coloring book too. When I'm coloring in that, I'm always like, what would this look like if it was water? So it's always a question. Now with stained glass, I want to put my leading down here as well. So I'm marking off where I want the leading to go. And I definitely had to do some measuring just to make sure it looked right and made sense. and I know what kind of design I want to use with the outer letting. So this is important. And you know what I'm talking about with the letting. We actually made those lines in the last video. And if you don't, you need to go and check out the last video to see what I'm talking about. But I needed a guideline for those letting lines that I made. And I did that by using this ruler. Love this ruler. I have a shorter one just like it, but made by a different brand. I think they're all the same brand. They're just, you know how people do. Anyway, so I'm making the lines so I have a guide to go off of when I start working on putting the lead lines down when we are putting the glass on it. So that is what we are working on. These are the lines I'm talking about. You know, we went through this prior. So now we're putting the glass on top, and then we're making sure that these lead lines are dry, because that is also a question. I'm also making sure that the lines that I put down on the glass are also dry, because now I'm going to go into putting those lines on the glass. I'm cutting this, so I'm using my X-Acto knife to cut pieces that are too long and, you know, clean up areas that I don't want to be in the way of the lines that I put down, so I have a clear space. So I'm cleaning that up with my X-Acto knife. If you don't have an X-Acto knife, you can use what you like, but I think an X-Acto knife is extremely helpful for any type of art you use, you're creating. I use things to cut. I used these, blah, blah, sorry. I use my X-Acto knife to cut all kinds of stuff. So you just never know. One good tip about the X-Acto knife is to always keep your fingers out of the way. I learned that very early on when I was doing graphic design at 15, is to keep your fingers out of the way, and that safety is very important. So you see me with my lead lines and trying to stretch them out to fit where I want things to go, but they're looping over my my flower, and I don't want that. So I have to make some manual adjustments while I'm working on that. And that is what I do. So fun fact, everything doesn't have to be super straight, but it is very helpful when it's close to straight so that you can have things the way you want them to be. And so you see me smoothing down the lead lines, and you see me lifting it up and replacing it. That's what happens with the window cling as well when you use the method that we used in order to create the lead lines. So that's super helpful, I would hope. And then I had to take it off so I could see what it looked like without the line behind it, because I wanted to make sure it was good. Cleanup is always easier when you are using, see, look, I ended up using my ruler to help my lead line be a little more flush and a little straight. But cleanup is always good. Using a, what do you call the ear cleaners? Y'all know what I'm saying, a Q-tip. So cleanup is always easier when you're using a Q-tip. So try to have that on hand as well. Y'all saw me use the Q-tip a little bit earlier for some other stuff in the last video. So using a Q-tip to clean up stuff, especially get debris off of the glass, is really important. So keep that in mind when you're also working on your stuff. And now the other thing about the lead lines is making sure from left to right you have the same kind of spacing with the lead lines, because you don't want there to be a huge space on the left and a gappy space on the right. You want to kind of give some equal distance. A lot of times when you are designing anything or creating anything, visual hierarchy is very important. And a lot of times people don't pay attention to visual hierarchy, but you do want to keep that in mind whenever you create any piece, any design, is the visual hierarchy of what you're creating, so that the thing that you want people to look at first is the thing they see first, and the thing you want them to look at second is potentially the thing they look at second. Not saying that it is always the case, but a lot of times you want that to be the case. So I'm doing the bottom part of this now. I'm lining it up to the bottom of the vase to make it make sense. And then I'm putting that lead line down. If you can look at what I've created here, you see that some of the flowers, some of the stems or the leaves, some of the flowers, some of the leaves, not stems, you can obviously see that I did not outline every part of the stuff that I'm doing right here. And that's because when I thought about how I was going to get the paint in and what that would look like, I had to think through that process As you see now, I'm also cleaning up the edges as I take out some of the bottom part of the lead lines because they're too long. We want to make sure we get that good. And then when we make a mess, we clean it up with the Q-tip. So in any case, I was saying before that you see some of the lines that you see in the art beneath it are not actually done on the glass. And that's because some of those lines I was like, I don't really need this line. I can keep this a full shape and it'd be fine. One of the big things I want to express is that you have to close your shapes. You have to close your shapes. You don't want a globby glob mess, so you have to close your shapes. Everything doesn't have to be closed, but you do need to close most of your shapes. That is critical to make sure that when you put the paint in, it's not just everywhere. And the smaller the shape, and this was my experience, the smaller the shape, the less concern you have with it becoming very bubbly. That's what I found. The smaller the shape, the less concern you have with it being super bubbly. And then I take that off of the color so I can make sure it looks good to me. And then I place it back down so that I am lining everything up again so I can start with my colors. So as you can see, I must have not closed the shape. So now I'm closing that shape. I'm rolling my paint because you are not supposed to shake the paint. You are supposed to roll the paint. So I'm rolling the paint. You see me doing that so that I can make sure that it's nicely mixed. I'm just rolling it on the table and you see me kind of contemplating where I want those whites because those whites are two different kinds of whites. One is translucent and one is not. And then you'll start seeing me clean up a little bit. I initially used alcohol to clean this glass, so I don't think I even showed that part, but I did. I used alcohol to clean the glass to make sure it was all good before I started putting anything down on it. So you might want to use the same. And as you can see now, I'm taking the first color and I'm filling in the red shape. So I'm going after the flower, the first red flower or the only red flower on the page, and I'm filling that in using the gallery glass. And one thing that I did not know is about the kind of bubbles I was going to make. Now, I didn't understand that initially. And first I was using a toothpick to burst the bubbles to try to keep that looking good. And I was using a toothpick to do it. But what I realized was my toothpick wasn't super effective after a time. And I had bought these tools, and so I start using those tools to pop the bubbles inside of the shape. But I am moving the paint around using the toothpick, so you can see me smoothing out the paint with the toothpick but also bursting the bubbles. Like, this is the tool I'm talking about. It's a dotting tool, and I'm using that to burst the bubbles inside of the paint and then also zhuzh it around a little bit. I did get a better methodology of squeezing the paint out as I went along, because it seemed like initially it was very difficult, but it started getting easier the more I worked on it. So that is also something for you to think about, is that it does get easier as you work on the project for the paint that you are, squeezing out, and you're kind of learning as you go along. This is probably better for me to do this and just trying it. So that is what I do for the majority of this project. And I'm just going to let you enjoy the rest of it because I'm giving you all the tips up front so that you are able to watch the rest of it and see what I'm doing and understand what it's going to turn out to look like at the end, because at the end I show you exactly what it looks like. And it is a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun to do. I definitely recommend you trying out this method because it just gave me a really good time. And if it's something that you are interested in, because I really love stained glass, grew up in churches, so stained glass was always a part of my childhood. We used to make these when we were younger. I don't know if I told you all that. When you have those little plastic glasses, and we used to do them in Sunday school. So this is just a recalling to my childhood. So this is really exciting for me to do. I was like really geeked, and initially I was like, how do I make these for other people? And then I was like, you know what, I can make them myself. I don't have to make them for other people. I can make them myself and give them to other people when they purchase them. So this is original art that is going to be for sale on my website, and hopefully you all love it enough to buy.